Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Creo titled We Can Dream. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on YouTube here. This review is part of a weekly series I'm doing where I'm reviewing requests from people who watch the channel, your fans and etc. And we got ourselves a request from Goben Hockhaus. If I'm not mispronouncing that, hopefully I'm not butchering that. They say, I could recommend listening to We Can Dream from Creo, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. What do we got? Great sound design with the wind. So much to appreciate already. Great use of breakbeats there. I mean, it just knows it's enough with what it's got. I mean, it just flew by so quickly. It's such a wonderful... Really catches your attention, doesn't it? It knows exactly when it thinks it's got you figured out, and then the moment you think you have time to discuss it, boom, and with the marching snares. And we're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. So welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Creo titled We Can Dream. In this section, I'm going to be providing an overall sort of song analysis of this piece, as well as sort of any applicable constructive critique, and then finally sort of putting forward my thoughts on this track, just generally as a listener, from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this track is about? Well, I first of all just want to sort of quickly thank Goben Hockhaus for their request here. This is a stunning piece. I think that it's just so beautiful in the intent and story of it. I think effectively this is trying to inspire a feeling of it being kind of like a fantasy or being mesmerized by the beauty that's on display here. The audiovisual experience of the video itself is absolutely wonderful, as you've seen, but it's also just such a really splendidly minimalist approach to storytelling, where it really just kind of like invites you to be a part of it and to kind of figure out most of the remaining dots and bits and pieces on your own. I think the lady that sings in this, the way they're produced, the way they're included in there, there's some interesting vocal filtering and effects change on it, which make it kind of flutter in the mix. But their voice is just so refreshing in the ether, where there's already a lot of other refreshing elements. It's just a really sort of compelling occasional melody or sort of input that we put there that just kind of gives the listener a bit of direction without overcomplicating things. And it just reinforces that hook line of we can dream, and it's just awesome because it's true. We absolutely can. It's just done in such a friendly, almost kind of sleepy way. There's this kind of effervescent sort of like calmness about it. I do like it despite how kind of like fizzy some of the basses and some of the drum parts are, and a lot of the intention and the kind of intensity of the piece. I adore it. But the vocals, we showed great vocal technique, comfortable in a head and chest voice. Didn't overcomplicate things, as I mentioned before. Provided a nice sort of counterpoint to the mostly sort of musical kind of focal point of this piece. And, all that's left to discuss is literally everything else. I think that outside of the vocalist's occasional expression and sort of like presence within the piece, the song at 3 minutes 31 is a sort of a very familiar drum bass kind of format there, where you have elements of various sort of instrumental components. To the start there, you start a bit more kind of gentle, add layers as you go through it, and you eventually build into like sort of a kind of more sort of general kind of familiar sort of drum bass groove with the kick, snares, and cymbal patterns with some breakbeats, filtered breakbeats in there as well. I thought the percussion was fantastic. You then sort of step away from that a little bit, come back up into like a chord note oriented accented part there in the second drop, which it's just a no-brainer. It's just so effective to switch up the pulse of the percussion at that point, whilst keeping a lot of the more sort of familiar elements retained from previous inferences. It's just changing little bits without changing it too much, so that you continue that really positive experience with it, but you continue to retain attention. I mean, you start with those kind of filtered acoustic guitars and the kicks and snares and stuff like that. There's even some sort of like tom fill parts with the drums, like there's some toms added there and those quieter parts, with the focus mainly being again on the kick, snares, and the cymbal patterns there. But it's just there's so many different drum chops and grooves as well there. We don't just stay on a quarter or an eighth or even a 16th note pattern there. We stitch things up throughout the piece, and it's just there's a lot of effort put into making the percussion compelling. But I also love the tone of those guitars there as well, not just the sort of clean sort of strummed guitars on the side that were double tracked, but also the arpeggiated sort of like single coil guitar leads that you have decorating and arpeggiating just in a really sort of like beautiful way. It's just a glorious kind of chimey, kind of shimmery kind of aesthetic throughout it, but as an element that does not compete for attention with the bass and drums, I just feel like it provides further rhythmical nuance, whilst also just adding a lot of personality and quality to the piece. I think it's a given that there are going to be bass synths in this kind of music, and I just feel like the different bass sounds that we had, the portamento on some of them to kind of roll around the place, some of them oscillated wah, 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 in a way that kind of had a great sense of flow and awareness of some of the hi-hat patterns, for example. There were reinforcements of certain rhythmic orientations there, whilst providing a sort of a push forward. And the colorations, whilst sort of being more sort of suspended, major oriented or minor oriented without being too overcomplicated with it. I mean, there might have been some extended sort of harmonies there overall, but I think there might have been even some ninths there. We just wanted it to really shine. And so the bass was nice and sort of like well-rounded and well-bodied, but it wasn't too low-end oriented at the same point. I think it kind of meted between the lower elements and the highs really neatly. There are some parts where it's a bit kind of glitchy sounding or a bit distorted, and that could be said the same way about the guitar. A bit more kind of like fizziness to it, I think, is incredibly sort of like respectable. You're allowed to have a bit of harshness in there if it's got a bit of push and it sounds cool. If things are too gentle the entire time, it can become almost a little bit too predictable. Yeah, we've got a really nice response. And so with these headphones here that I have, they're not the world's best headphones, but what they do really neatly is if you've got any issues with your mix, it points them out so that you can see them clearly. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with the post-production. I know we're not there yet, but I adore the way this thing's been produced. I wouldn't even be surprised if some of the sort of the guitar leady parts with distortion maybe sort of like synths, or maybe they were vocoded synths or synthesized guitar leads. It's just either way, I just love how well things mesh together. I like how we have varying intensities due to the differences in the instrumental layers. I just like how we have a really satisfying theme throughout the piece there. There's just a nice sort of chord progression that loops in effortlessly to itself. It's very peaceful sounding, like you can go to sleep listening to it. But for those that want to dance, you've got some harder sections as well to really sort of push you forward. And you have these upper sort of synths in the second drop that are just effervescent, and they are a nice sort of foil or addition to some of the ladies' like vocals on top of that. There's just an extra bit of color in the higher range that reinforces things and adds sort of dimensionality to it. When again, we're not taking the listener's attention for granted. And there are some really cool drum elements as well, just in terms of the speed and processing and looping of it. We go into some 16s and 30 seconds, and we kind of double things as they kind of go up and allow space in other moments, bits of sort of pause. And you just never know what you're going to get next, especially at the end there where we have again those marching drums and that sort of finale part. And you have that kind of like return to that melodic theme, dun 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 dun, on top of the marching drums, almost like you've gotten to the end of the dream and you're kind of seeing it out before you wake up again. It's really clever how it's unexpected again that comes in. You think the dream is over, but then when it kind of ends, you're like, were we dreaming or was this life after all? Like, there are just fun questions you can ask and interact with. And as the song fades out, you wake up from that dream and you're back to real life. I think that's the biggest compliment I could provide for this piece is that the music invites you to get lost in the dream that it's sort of weaving. This innate tapestry full of wonderful decorative elements there that just really sort of like stand out in a way that's pretty positive. I love music like this. So if anyone else has got any other sort of like suggestions for music similar to this that I can check out, I'd be more than happy to listen through it. But yeah, thematically, I think the major minor orients with some suspended and occasional sort of like extensions, primarily sort of like it signals towards us being very comfortable and peaceful and residing within this. Again, there's the stuff that'll get us grooving, a bit more sort of like active and hype, but then we come down from it with the energy shift levels. And at the end there, we kind of rest after our big journey to start the new chapter. So ultimately, I think the music kind of takes you by the hand and leads you in down the rabbit hole, but in a way that ends up with a happy ending, I suppose. But ultimately, just very satisfied with it. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering is just stunning. Any of the guitar, bass, drum, synth, the sort of key, any of the other elements there, whether there are also probably like risers and other bits of filtering with different instruments represented in different ways to sort of, I think there's like an guitar that was more sort of high-end oriented and filtered, and that halfway part to sort of further reinforce a lack of the lows in that section. You've just got clear decisions to kind of switch up the interpretation and impression the listener's happening with the piece, with the effect it's having with the frequency response. The music surrounds you in the stereo field and the headphones, this thing's popping in from different directions. Like while there are some parts of the double tracked in a way where it's very competent, such as the acoustic steel string guitars at the start, you have the tom fills, for example, or the toms themselves on the drum kit, and they are kind of like going around the place, kind of beep booping about there, and you're following it, and there's just like all this stuff that surrounds you and makes you want to sort of like, you get lost in it because of that. But the music surrounds you in the headphones, no word resonances, and the frequency spectrum just being very sort of like attentive in that regard. It is nice and loud without pumping, so bus compression on the tennis handle, but like that doesn't mean there's an absence of like side chaining or push on those kicks. There is a pulse, it's just not too dominant or unprofessional sounding. We just got commercial grade studio production with a piece that is well intentioned, and the vocals are the icing on the cake there. They just are a wonderful bit of coloration and context. So ultimately, no applicable constructive critique. I think it's a really wonderfully written and produced track, and it was just a wonderful singular experience. From a general listening perspective, I would happily listen to more of Creo's work. I think that when you make music like this, it's just really pleasant to listen to, because you sit there going, what could we possibly do once we've woken up? It kind of encourages you to get more experiences like this. So I think, and it's not just by itself really pleasant to listen to, and I feel invigorated after hearing it. I also want to have that again. And again, I think that's just another massive compliment for Creo with their work, because thank you for watching my review of this track from an ex named Creo titled Weekend Dream. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP reviews. Spiderhands out.